We're taking a peek into geek culture and sharing our top 10 fandom favorites. Let Your Geek Sideshow presents Geek Culture Countdown. Hey guys, this is Kitty.
And this is Andrew.
And we are coming to you live from the Sideshow Studios in Southern California. Welcome back to the Geek Culture Countdown. This week we are revving our engines to count down the top 10 fictional vehicles. These radical rides are some of the coolest cars and conveyances that pop culture has to offer. They get our heroes from point A to point B with style, speed, and high tech that outstrips the competition. Time to call shotgun and ride along with us as we reveal which vehicles race to the top spot on our list. Let's get started. All right, so thank you for joining me this week, Andrew.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
Good, so we're talking top 10 fictional vehicles. Mm-hmm. We kind of had to take a broad definition of vehicle for this one because, I mean, there's a lot of cool cars and we probably could have just filled the list with cars, but there are some jets and spaceships and other things that go that we wanted to make sure had a mention on our list.
There are just so many exciting methods of transportation, but you can't count teleportation, you know?
No.
It's not the same. And so you kind of have to narrow that in a bit.
Yeah.
And just get those A to B.
Yes. And we also had to leave out some anthropomorphic or we had to leave out some of the animalian modes of transport that many of our favorite heroes use. Sorry, there's no dragons on this list. There's no flying bison or anything, but there were enough of those types of mobile animal companions that maybe we'll just have to do a secondary list
maybe
at a later date. So without further ado, let's just jump in here. I believe you have number 10 on our list.
I do have number 10. And number 10 is KITT. It is the Knight Industries 2000 from Knight Rider. And KITT is an autonomous car. I mean, it's intelligent. And that's what's exciting about it because
this is the smart car.
This is the smart car. And I feel like this is the first smart car that the world really got to see as being intelligent, you know? It was artificial intelligence, but in a new way because KITT cared about Michael. You know, that's what made it interesting, that it's not just a robot that can answer any questions, you know, it's not just a machine. It genuinely cared about him and it protected him. And that was what was so cool about KITT. Other than the fact that he had like every single superpower ever, like he had superpowers of his own, you know, he like there wasn't a single tool that he didn't have and he was invincible. I mean, there was one episode where Michael was kind of trying to get rid of KITT because he was freaked out by him. And he was like, okay, so we're going to go to a demolition derby where we see how well we can destroy cars, right? And KITT's invincible, dude. Like So KITT is absolutely number 10. And
it's fascinating. I mean, in a world where any minor technological inconvenience results in jokes of oh, well, Skynet's here. And there's debates on the morality of self-driving cars. But here, KITT from Knight Rider is that idea and the ideal that we would want, a car that does care about us.
Yeah. And that was like the whole premise of KITT too, because they made a version before KITT, and I can't remember the name right now, but there was a car before KITT that didn't have the mission the same way that he did to protect the person inside the car. You know, it was just, make sure that the car's indestructible no matter what, you know.
That'll only get you so far.
That'll only get you so far. But then this wonderful, caring AI car actually cared. And that's what made KITT special. Even from newer cars that they made, this one cared about Michael in particular, and he learned to grow with Michael. And that's just what makes him the true compassionate car, you know? Yeah, so he's number 10.
All right. Well, number 9 on our list is a little bit larger scale. This is Marvel's Helicarrier, which is the kind of proprietary idea for there's been a number of helicarriers. Marvel's Helicarrier is an immensely large flying aircraft carrier that serves not only as a ship and mobile command center, but it is the crucial operating system for S.H.I.E.L.D. It is from where they do all of their government espionage or the intelligence. But it also conveys a lot of it can store Quinjets and numerous modes of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s
Right.
transportation. And it has been redesigned over the years, especially when it made the jump to live action, but its original concept was created by Jack Kirby, king of comics himself.
Really?
For
I didn't
the
know that.
Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. series in Strange Tales number 135. And that was in the 60s. And so Kirby created this idea that S.H.I.E.L.D. as an intelligence agency had a giant mobile aircraft. In some versions, it can cloak itself. It can go completely invisible. It's equipped with massive engine rotors, and it's really cool. But throughout all of the upgrades it's received over the years, it is still that kind of crucial mission control center for S.H.I.E.L.D. And various helicarriers in the Marvel Universe, they don't really have a specific method for how they name them, but different ones have notably been named the Luxor, Hermes, the Iliad, Argonaut, Odyssey, and more. They tend to go for those grandiose names. A lot of kind of Roman style names, but they'll just call a helicarrier whatever they want to call it. And Tony Stark, even when he took over as director of S.H.I.E.L.D. at some point in the comics, he designed one that was Iron Man red and gold, which is a little not what you want from a covert espionage agency.
I mean, when you're trying to be a little bit stealthy, you're not thinking, red and gold.
But it was Tony Stark. And this behemoth vehicle has also made numerous appearances in the live-action films, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, most notably in the Avengers. I think a lot of longtime fans, when Bruce Banner's like, oh, great, you're going to put me on a submarine. And they're like, oh, no, we're putting you in the air. And he's like, oh, this is much worse. Watching the helicarrier rise from the ocean really, really excited a lot of fans. And it was a crucial plot point in Captain America, the Winter Soldier, as a number of the helicarriers were taken down when it was revealed that Hydra was S.H.I.E.L.D. Spoilers, sorry. But the Marvel Cinematic Universe was not its first debut. There was actually a TV movie in 1998 called Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., in which the helicarrier made its first live-action appearance, and it even appeared in Deadpool, but they couldn't call it the helicarrier because of legal reasons, but it's the scene where the whole final battle of that first Deadpool movie takes place.
That's the helicarrier?
That's the helicarrier.
I had no idea.
That's one of the downed helicarriers. Yeah, they just couldn't call it that because of legal ramifications. But pay attention next time you watch that movie, you'll see some of the familiar architecture of the giant landing strips that they used in the film.
That is such a cool Easter egg.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And so number 9 on our list is definitely the S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier.
Well, number 8 on our list has to go to the Mach 5 from Speed Racer.
Woohoo!
And
Go Speed Racer.
You're a fan of Speed Racer?
A little bit. Like, it's been a while, but I when they played it on like Boomerang and stuff, I'd watch the Speed Racer.
Yeah, I actually didn't know it was Speed Racer that I was watching on Boomerang for years. I just thought like, oh, it's cool car. Like that was the whole idea.
Sure.
And cool car comes with 7 mechanisms from A to G. Okay, this is the original, and I wrote this down because this is. I don't know, it's exciting to me because it made sense when I was young. It made sense that A activated the auto jack, and B activated the belt tires, and C for cutter blades, D for deflector, E for evening illumination. It was like special lighting. And then we got F for Frogger mode. That's what it was called. It was Frogger mode. I didn't make these connections until researching for this show, but I was like, oh, it was that thing. Sorry, hold on. G for the go-homing robot.
The go-homing
The go-homing robot, just in case you need to go home.
So that's like the Speed Racer version of Waze or Google Maps.
Yeah, exactly. And it's all just compact on the wheel. And so watching that, it feels, because with some super cool cars that are super high tech, you feel like you're in like the cockpit of a plane where there's just 15 million switches and everything. But A to G, it made sense, and it was simple. I also learned researching, because I never watched this, I never saw this, but there's a secret H button.
Really?
That is compatible with the go homing robot. And so
that's
when
the H in homing.
it kind of, yeah, a little bit. So it reconnects the two. And so if you send out the go homing robot to go do whatever it needs to do, then the H will connect you with it.
Oh, interesting.
It's a weird thing, but I really like the idea and I love the simplicity. And I mean, Speed Racer.
Speed Racer. I mean, nothing beats seeing that the little red stripe and just I can even see like the animation, like speed lines and all of that signature animation style of the series.
It was iconic, and I think it is iconic. And I think in a lot of modern movies, you see those Speed Racer references, you know, because it stands the test of time. Because again, it just makes sense.
Yeah, and of course you got to have a matching helmet and.
Oh, I mean, yeah, of course. That whole outfit. Oh, it was perfect. So yeah, number 8 on the list was the Mach 5 from Speed Racer.
All right, well, number 7, we're staying in the animated realm, and like, zoinks, it's the Mystery Machine. Now, where the Mach 5 was extremely tech savvy, the Mystery Machine was definitely not, but it still had, first of all, the reliability of getting our Mystery Inc. heroes from point A to point B, but it just seemed like a comforting, homey kind of thing. There weren't, like, over the years, it's changed, and it just seems that there's no specific one canonical interior of that car that it is able to be adapted to suit the needs of the Scooby Gang. And of course, this is the main method of transport for the Scooby-Doo animated series. This is a 60s era panel van, picture, if you will, painted mid-blue with a green stripe and orange accents, got the flower power going on, all the groovy, and then of course you get the Mystery Machine painted on the side. And yeah, the interior just seems to be conveniently changeable depending on what the gang needs. I mean, all 5 of them fit in the car, but sometimes there's room to have like a table or like whatever little feast that Shaggy and Scooby have cooked up in the back.
Yeah, always a feast. Yeah. Always snacks. It's like it's its own walk-in fridge, you know?
That's the most important part, clearly. I mean, because what gear do they need to solve mysteries? They just have to show up and find the clues. So they've got all that space in the back of the van.
That's fine.
And of course, in some of the movies, it's been transformed into like a drag racer or a monstrous hot rod, depending on which crazy animated film you're watching with the Scooby Gang. And yeah, it's not the largest or most spacious of all the other cars on our list, but it's just comfortable, familiar, and totally groovy for anyone who followed the adventures of Shaggy, Scooby, Daphne, Velma, and Fred as they track down ghosts and monsters and Old Man Jenkins.
And Old Man Jenkins.
and they would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for those meddling kids. So the Mystery Machine is number 7 on our list. And I love how brightly colored that one is. It is just the flower power.
No, the flower power was a really important part of my childhood, because anytime I saw a 60s van, I would sit there and just imagine the flower power instead. Because you see that, you know, the wood trimming on like almost all of them from back then. But everything was a Mystery Machine in my mind.
Yes.
You know, everything had the power to become the Mystery Machine. And so like everything became a curiosity, you know, and you see the Mystery Machine and you're like, we're going to do this. It's I don't know. It was a really empowering feeling as a kid. Like you can figure out anything.
Yeah.
And so the Mystery Machine is it's literally the vehicle for that feeling.
Yeah. All right. So you got the next one on our list?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We're on 6.
Woohoo. We're just flying. We're flying through this list.
Oh boy. we're flying through this list. And number 6 is the Aston Martin DB5 from James Bond's Goldfinger.
Woohoo.
And again, this is a super powered car, okay? We got machine guns. We got tire shredding blades. We got bullet screens. There's a radar and tracker. There's an oil slick, smoke screen, rear water cannons, lasers. And here's something really nifty for all you 60s cats out there. There was a telephone in this car. And I say that like it's special because I kind of feel like it was, you know, the whole idea that you could still be connected to a telephone. And that's like a simple thing for me. But, you know, the car, it just radiates cool. There's no other way to put it, because James Bond in the car is cool enough as is. But then when he's walking away from the car, you see that car in the background and you're like, oh man, I can't wait till he gets back into it, because everything to do with that car, just, it was so
Suave.
Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. Suave.
And you need more than a license to kill to drive that thing. Like, you really have to know what you're doing behind the wheel of the Aston Martin.
You do, because it's not a car that I could drive for dang sure. Like, I couldn't pull it off. And I also couldn't, like, this might be weird. We're going to do a little bit of a crossover, I guess.
All right.
You couldn't put Shaggy behind the wheel. You couldn't put Fred or Velma behind the wheel of the Aston Martin. It's really James Bond's car, and
I wouldn't be able to drive it because especially if you're required to do espionage and maybe high-speed chases, I'm the kind of person who always puts her signal on, no matter, like, even in a parking lot, which is common courtesy, but I don't think James Bond and the Aston Martin have time to put the turn signal on.
No. But what made it really cool, like, despite all of its superpowers, is that this was a real car still. You couldn't get the extra deluxe superpower version. You couldn't get it with the smoke screen or the rear water jets. But I'm pretty sure you could get it with a telephone. So number 6 on the list was the Aston Martin DB5.
All right. So we're about halfway through the list right now, and we've had some really cool, we've got a nice mix between, like, espionage and then, like, bright, the animated ones especially, bright, fun. So we've got an honorable mention that is, almost the ultimate in stealth because you can't really see it, but it still gets you from point A to point B. Our honorable mention goes to Wonder Woman's invisible jet or invisible plane, depending on which school of comic book thought you come from. Picture in your mind the invisible jet.
Well, you can't.
You can't.
You can't picture that.
Not with that attitude, you can't.
You can imagine Wonder Woman sitting very still in the middle of the air.
Yes. And so this one is strange because it is pretty iconic, but in more modern iterations of the character, it doesn't really appear as much. It's been phased out a little bit. But it did appear in the original kind of sensational comics for Wonder Woman, but it had a lot more rules to it because, like, the original invisible plane was a invisible plane, and it specifically required the wind to move, and there could be situations like it was like a storytelling device in which if the wind wasn't blowing, Wonder Woman could be stuck wherever she took the plane, or if she was in the plane and the wind wasn't enough to keep it going, like, she could just be plummeting kind of helplessly to the ground, which was a bizarre concept, but it did get a reinvention post, I believe, Crisis. A lot of things in the DC universe are like, it's probably post-Crisis.
It's probably post-Crisis. Yeah, she received, in the newer versions, a Lancinarian morphing disc. And Lancinarians are like subterranean peoples and everything. But as a morphing disc, it could turn into a number of invisible items, right? And that was not used too much. But after a while, Batman actually decided that he should be the one to give Wonder Woman an invisible jet / plane, and decided to give her one with stealth powers. And so
it was like an actual physical jet.
It's an actual physical jet that has the ability to go full on stealth mode, and it's invisible, notably not as invisible as the Lancinarian morphing disc, but still invisible and still stealthy. And I think, and this is a big difference because I don't know about the old comics, but in some of the things that I've seen with Wonder Woman, you do still see her. Like, the plane is invisible, but not cloaked.
Yeah, there are some versions that will say that, like, she's just sitting there. And
she's just sitting there, which kind of in midair.
Which is an incredibly iconic image, but it's hilarious when you think about the context. But
absolutely. But then Batman gave her one that was a proper cloaking device and also hid her.
Yes.
So, very generous gift.
Thanks, Batman.
But, thanks, Batman. Always looking out for us.
All right. And so with that honorable mention out of the way, we're going to go to the outer reaches of the galaxy, because number 5 on our list is the Millennium Falcon. And now a lot of fans are probably wondering, hey, why isn't the Millennium Falcon higher on this list? Because we know this thing is incredibly iconic. But for those of you who are worried as to why we put it kind of in the middle of our list, worry not. The fastest hunk of junk in the galaxy has already clocked in at, I'll spoil the list for you, number 1 on our top 10 Star Wars vehicles countdown, which is currently available now on your favorite podcast listening platform. courtesy of Let Your Geek Sideshow. And this iconic vehicle has changed hands over the years from smugglers to scavengers, but it remains most tightly associated with Han Solo and Chewbacca. This legendary spacecraft is classified as a Corellian light freighter, known for its tight handling and evasive capacity, with the right pilot at the helm, of course. It's the ship that made the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs, and it represents a sense of home and belonging for a lot of the Star Wars fan base. Just evidenced by Chewie We're Home in the films. And it was given a deeper backstory in Solo, A Star Wars Story. I know a lot of people may or may not have chosen to sit that film out, but if you have any affinity for Han Solo, I loved the backstory it gave, not only to him as a character, but the scandalous passing of the Falcon between Han and Lando. And I just thought that was such a fun dynamic and story that they added to the ship. They also explain what the heck a Kessel Run is.
That was my biggest question. What a Kessel Run was and what a
parsec?
A parsec.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure most people listening, but in case you're not familiar, a parsec is not a measurement of time. It is a measurement of distance. And so when it made the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs, he was taking a shortcut, not necessarily going super, super fast. And I know most people think sec because like second.
Right. Yeah. But it's more, it more shows how skilled of a pilot, you know, but also how fine-tuned that this ship really is.
Yeah, but it didn't quite make it out without a few scrapes. I mean, it had to get the name the fastest hunk of junk in the galaxy because it did get a little junked up in the race. And currently, at the time of recording, we're eagerly awaiting The Rise of Skywalker. But the last thing we saw from the Star Wars universe was The Last Jedi, where the Falcon is now currently the hub for the surviving Resistance personnel, as they made their escape from the First Order on Crate, I believe. So, Millennium Falcon, we do have a whole other podcast on Star Wars vehicles if you want to get your fix on X-Wings and such, because the Falcon will represent our only Star Wars choice on this list. So you can check that out after you check out this podcast. But right now, we're going to take it away with number 4.
Yeah, and let's not leave space for number 4. Let's actually stay in the whole Star world, but let's instead go to Star Trek.
All right.
For number 4, we've got the USS Enterprise.
Woohoo!
Which is, I mean, it's Star Trek. The USS Enterprise is a character of its own that plays such an integral role in not just Star Trek and not just that world, but the impact that it had on an entire generation and many generations.
And the next generation.
Oh, man, you beat me to it.
I'm sorry.
You beat me to it. Oh,
I'm sorry.
The next generation of nerds and geeks and everybody who loves sci-fi and fantasy. I mean, this was, I think, one of the first ever examples of a spaceship, and it wasn't just a UFO or flying saucer, you know? It didn't look like a discus, you know? It looked
with tiny little green Martians inside of it.
Exactly, but it was a spaceship that wasn't just meant for travel, because that is something that stands out about the USS Enterprise. It's not just from A to B, it's about exploration. And so the same way that the mystery van sort of inspires curiosity and, you know, figuring out the mysteries of the world, this is about figuring out the mysteries of the universe, you know, and it's about the adventurous nature in all of us. And so even seeing the Enterprise, even seeing it for a fan, is that sort of fluttering feeling in your chest of adventure, you know? And so that ship helped us all explore sci-fi, and it helped us all explore our own lives as geeks, you know? I just love it. I just love it. And so it's number 4.
I feel ashamed, but when I think of the Enterprise, I mostly think of like the novelty pizza cutters I've seen that are shaped like the Enterprise.
Oh boy.
Because
I don't know if I'll ever get that out of my head.
I think the first image that comes to my head is that it's like it's completely silvered out like a pizza cutter.
Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah, I think you've just
I'm sorry for ruining that for you.
No, you've enriched it. Now I have that. It's not that you've associated the USS Enterprise with pizza cutters. It's that you've associated pizza cutters with adventure. That's what you've done for me.
True.
And so now every time I'm cutting a pizza, I'll be like, live long and prosper, you know?
As you eat the third or fourth slice of pizza that you...
All right. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, that's what I would do.
That's what I would do. Yeah, no, that's what I would do.
All right. So number 3 on the list, we're taking it back Earthside, but we're kind of keeping that realm of mystery. The number 3 choice on our list is the Ecto-1. So like the Ghostbusters themselves, the iconic Ecto-1 vehicle is a strange but reliable thing, known for its distinct body design and its recognizable siren wail. Quick fun detour, Comic-Con 2018, I believe it was, Blitzway brought a quarter-scale replica of the Ecto-1 to the Sideshow booth, and all weekend long, it had its siren on, and I thought I was going insane.
Oh.
But you could hear, because it has a very distinct, like, and that was going on all weekend. It was a really, really cool replica to see up close. But the car itself in the series, the actual make is a 1959 Cadillac made by Miller Meteor, and it is a combination of both an ambulance and a hearse with the end loader style. It was purchased secondhand with a number of deficiencies in the brakes, shocks, transmission, mufflers, and more, but Dr. Ray Stantz was able to make the repairs on the car, and soon the Ecto-1 became a portable ghost-busting machine. It was spacious enough for traps, proton packs, PKE readers, their Ecto goggles, and all the crew's equipment that they could stuff in there. Also, the crew itself, the Ghostbusters, the busters of ghosts.
The busters.
And the car itself has also taken on a lot of character, as many of these vehicles do, and I think that's what endears them to us as fans, because it's more than the thing you make your daily commute in, because your commute is ghost busting or your commute is solving mysteries. And so the Ecto-1 is just such a symbolic and important piece throughout all the Ghostbusters franchise, the animated and the live action films. And early drafts of the films, the car had some paranormal abilities of its own, but those were kind of scrapped out. Like there was a cloaking, like dephasing mode that they had originally wanted, so that like in a high-speed chase the Ghostbusters could kind of like dematerialize, but
they could ghost out.
Okay. And it was originally going to be painted black as well, with like purple strobing lights instead of the regular ambulance siren, but it made the vehicle appear more sinister, and it was difficult for some of the nighttime shots, so of course they switched it to what we all know and love, which is the white with the red stripe, and all the goodness stacked on top of it. This one is a really funny one. I know it's number 3 on our list, but it's one of the cars I think most people would want to drive for themselves. Because there's some of them where it's like, I would love to be on the Enterprise. I don't want to control. I don't want to
drive the Enterprise.
I don't want to be responsible for that. But the Ecto-1, and it is kind of an attainable car because it's a realistic style. People can kit their cars out to look like the Ecto-1, and so I think that's cool because it is one of the more attainable versions. That can't speak for your ghost busting ability if you actually make the car, but it is such a fun piece. And another fun thing was when they were filming and like figuring out how much Stantz bought it for secondhand. They had to compare like different models of the car because the original Cadillac that they had wanted it to be would have only cost about $600, but as filming production went on, inflation technically increased, and that car then became, I think it was like a $4,800 purchase secondhand. But like inflation actually changed the value of the car in the fictional world, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
They just kept that. There is an element of realism to it, apart from the ghosts and stuff,
but it is very real.
Yeah.
And I will say another thing about that car is that there are few vehicles that you look at and immediately hear a theme song in your head. You know?
Yeah, like, oh my gosh. So the Ecto-1 is number 3 on our list.
So let's then go to number 2.
All right.
And I'm just going to
keep
go
us
into it.
waiting?
No, I'm just going to go into it. It's the DeLorean. It's the DeLorean from Back to the Future. And it is the time-traveling machine that really makes the entire thing possible.
Wait a minute, Doc. So you're telling me You made a time machine out of a DeLorean. Sorry, I had to get that one in there.
There are at least like 15 quotable moments surrounding the DeLorean. You know, it's a really good one. Let alone scenes that just like burn their way into your memory, you know, when the first time you see it time travel and Doc puts his dog in the car and it's just gone. You're like, okay, this man is either crazy or brilliant. And it's all surrounding the car, you know?
And the strips of flame that like follow. Because when you see this thing hit 88 miles per hour, you're going to see.
Because when you see the
shit. I don't want to. You know, you finish the quote for yourself.
Yeah, no, that's good. But here's some things that I thought really made the car wonderful, because I've been covering a whole bunch of super powered cars, you know, or super intelligent cars, you know. This car is actually very super practical because it's electric. I mean, it runs off of
woogie.
Yeah. It runs off of plutonium for a while there, you know, very fuel efficient, very good for the environment, but then electric car too later, you know, when it becomes electric, even better for the environment. But like
runs on trash.
And then it runs on trash, right? So like this car thinks about, like, it makes you think about the future in a way that nothing else did, you know? Like, yeah, KITT talk to us about artificial intelligence, you know? That was his deal. But the DeLorean made you think of the future, you know? Like, how are things really going to change in my day-to-day? Will I power my car by trash, you know?
And it even goes to a point where they don't need roads anymore. They don't, like, I'm sorry, I wasn't going to, like, actually
You're so good. You're so good at this.
I have seen the Back to the Future movies more than any human should ever probably see those films. But, yes, but the car itself, yeah, it continues to move forward into the future because it becomes a flying car, and then it doesn't become the train, but like there's different
train
adaptations.
Technology
Yes.
So that happens, and the DeLorean might be one of the most iconic cars of all time because, I mean,
yes, agreed.
Yeah.
Well, no,
it just has a place in my heart, and I think every geek's heart.
And those gull wing doors, like, I mean, every time I see a real car not that the DeLorean's not a real car, but when I see a car nowadays that has those gull wing doors, immediately I'm like, oh my God, there's a flux capacitor inside. Like that's exactly what this is. And it's like, no, that's just a really fancy modern car.
In my mind, it's always come from the DeLorean. You know, it's those are still DeLorean inspired, and anybody that has those gull wing doors, they're just wanting to drive Doc Martin's DeLorean. You know, that's it.
Doc Brown, Doc Martin.
Yep, Doc Brown.
Close enough.
Yep.
Well, and even the car is such. I mean, it is the method of transport from A to B, but also through the years, and it gets a place of honor on the film posters.
Oh yeah,
like, that's important for the franchise. And yeah, the DeLorean, that's just, it's such a huge thing,
right? And
this and now that oh God, Back to the Future now technically takes place in the past.
Yeah, that's a weird thing. That's a really weird. I remember
2015.
As of 2015, I remember looking at my clock, like at the time that they set it to. I can't remember what it is now, but in 2015, I was like, and we are in the future. This is it. Now we've made it. And I was like, it is nothing like what they said.
Yeah. And I mean, even more so than the hoverboards and the other vehicles that we saw in that franchise. It's the DeLorean that everybody wants to hop in and have that experience.
It's the DeLorean of our most hopeful future, you know?
Yeah.
The DeLorean is a hope for a future where we can power our cars by trash. And that is why it's number 2.
All right. So you're probably wondering what could be number 1 at this point. And there was no other choice in our minds but the Batmobile. The Batmobile. That phrase is such a concept in everyone's head. It is housed in the Batcave. It is driven by Batman, and the Batmobile is the ultimate fictional vehicle thanks to its overwhelming presence in our pop culture. school of thought. It first appeared in Detective Comics number 27, which I believe was in 1939. So this is
It's been around a while.
It's been around. It's got some good miles on it. But it appeared as an ordinary car. I believe it was actually red when it first appeared.
Mm-hmm.
And it has morphed since then into an appropriate ride for the Dark Knight himself. The car's bat motif is evident through every redesign, and it has become things like a black armored vehicle. It's had the winged tail fins, and sometimes, though infrequently, it's had a straight up like bat head on the, like a stylized bat head, almost like a not a hood ornament. It's much larger than that.
Yeah,
but
it's a full sized, like it's a car sized bat head.
Yeah,
for lack of a better way to put it, and that would be horrifying coming at you.
Oh yeah, just racing down the streets of Gotham in the dead of night.
Mm-hmm.
But the Batmobile has always evolved to suit Batman's needs, and it has appeared alongside him in pretty much every iteration. Like I'd be hard pressed to find a version where the Batmobile in some capacity is not mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a high-speed racer. It's been an armored tumbler. It's been a prisoner transport system and even a mobile crime lab for the world's greatest detective. And in the Adam West live-action series, it was a much campier design. And then it continued to develop into a much more serious and armored utility vehicle. And like all these other high-tech spy vehicles we've seen, it's kitted out to the max. It has guns, cannons, shields, lasers, riot suppressors, gyroscoping wheels, and a highly advanced steering system. And that is I can just, in my head, I'm picturing just the wheels just kind of stripping out, like just peeling down the streets of Gotham in this vehicle that, though it's dark in appearance, it has a fairly distinct shape to it. And there's so many different versions because you can have, you're like, I want to be the Batman who is the high-speed chase. I want to be the Batman who needs to like ram down some buildings with this. Or I want to be the one who's parking it nondescriptly and doing some mobile DNA analysis and forensics. And the Batmobile really just is that car that it has had so many faces, but it takes very little to evoke the image of the Batmobile.
Right. The Batmobile just makes sense with every single Batman.
Mm-hmm.
And my favorite Batmobile moments are those really tense times where he has to take a villain into the Batmobile with him, right? And then it's not just
I call shotgun.
Yeah, it's not just a vehicle at that point. It's like a location for change. From point A to point B, his relationship with that villain is always different. And the Batmobile houses that.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone wants to know what it's like on the inside of the Batmobile. I mean, Batman's had villains just completely calm in his car in the Batmobile because they're like, oh wow, this is amazing. This is phenomenal.
Yeah, and the inside of a car is kind of a sacred space. I know there's plenty of high-speed chases or like people punching each other out over a steering wheel situation, but oh my god, you get into Batman's car and you respect that man's car.
You do, and also because there's always the don't touch anything.
Yeah.
You know, the classic Batman.
Absolutely. Don't put your feet on the front console or anything. No, it is just an incredibly salient and iconic presence in pop culture, and I think everybody has their version of the Batmobile that they picture. Just slightly elongated black car. You got the tail fins on the back.
Mm-hmm.
What else you need depends on what version.
Which Batman you love the most.
Yeah,
right?
But there is a Batmobile for all seasons, and that's why it undoubtedly had to take the number one spot on our list.
Had to be.
So, to recap our list, honorable mention goes to the Invisible Jet. Number 10 is KITT from Knight Rider. Number 9 is the Shield Helicarrier. Number 8 is Speed Racer's Mach 5. Number 7 is the Mystery Machine. Number 6 is James Bond's Aston Martin DB5. Number 5 is the Millennium Falcon. Number 4 is the USS Enterprise. Number 3 is the Ecto-1. Number 2 is the DeLorean Time Machine. And number 1 is the Batmobile. So, did we steer this countdown in the right direction? Or do you think we should have called some roadside assistance? If we missed something that you think should be on the list, be sure to check out our blog and send us your opinions at podcasts@sideshow.com. And that was our top 10 fictional vehicles. Do you enjoy the Geek Culture Countdown? We are proud to bring you pop culture content completely ad-free, but that doesn't mean we don't need your support to help keep us going. Please take a moment to leave us a 5-star review on iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting platform and help spread the word about our podcast. We welcome fan feedback. Email us at podcasts@sideshow.com with your thoughts and suggestions for how we can make our shows even better. Plus, tune in for our other pop culture podcasts. See your favorite comic and film characters evolve across 2 generations in the bi-weekly Then and Now podcast. Hear exclusive interviews with celebrities and pop culture industry leaders as they let their geek side show in Look Who Showed Up. Then get all the latest pop culture news with our daily briefing, a 2-minute breakdown of all the biggest geek headlines perfect for your Alexa or Google News briefings. We wouldn't exist without your continued support. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to let your geek side show.